Hello everyone, this is Byron, and it's Monday, so it's time for some Flutter news. This week I want to go over some Flutter Survey results, and a new dev tool came out involving providers. The developer for Adobe XD, who wrote a plugin that turns designs into Flutter, had an Ask Me Anything, and as always, we'll have a funny at the end. Let's get into it. So the obvious big news this week is Google I/O. This starts tomorrow, and it's always exciting and interesting to see what they have to say, especially at the keynote. So I strongly recommend to go check it out, watch a few sessions, and I'm personally interested if there's any updates on desktop apps in Flutter, but we'll have to just wait and see. So this one was really interesting. This is a survey done by the Flutter team, and I think this shows where Google has put a lot of their focus and energy with Flutter, and it reflects what the developer community is communicating to them. The first thing that stands out, if I scroll down here, it says 92% of respondents said they were positively satisfied with Flutter. So developers really like it. That's obvious, and that's a good sign for the community because if developers like it, they're going to keep developing for it. Now, if I scroll down here a little bit further, okay, go past that one, this one. When evaluating Flutter for a project, which of these items made you lean against adopting Flutter? And the number one reason for not adopting it was a concern about Google's commitment to Flutter, which I found very, very interesting. I can actually sympathize with that group, but I think we must remember that Flutter is still pretty young. It's not even been 3 years, and it stacks up to React Native and is catching up really close to native code bases. I feel like it's made a lot of progress, and Google is obviously committed to it. They're building apps in it. They are getting a really strong response from developers and from businesses alike. So I say give it some time. I think people are really going to come around to Flutter. Maybe React Native will stay around, not saying one will kill the other, but I think Flutter will keep growing. But there's a lot more to this article than just what I've said, so go take a look. Link is in the description below. And yeah, take a look. So this last week, DevTools 2.2.3 was released, and there were some pretty great updates, but one that I want to highlight is this one right here, the Provider Debugger. This was created by Remy Rousselet, and he is the author of Provider, and he made this great tool that is now part of the DevTools, so you can now access the data in your provider and change it, which is fantastic for debugging and testing your app's UI. You do need to update your DevTools, but once you do, you can now observe your app's provider data and update it at will, which is super, super cool. And I'll be putting a little tutorial on how you can use this, so check it out if you're interested. I'll put the link to that tutorial in the description below. Who doesn't love a good Ask Me Anything? These are always interesting to check out, and Adobe XD has created a Design to Flutter tool to help build UIs faster and closer to spec, which if you're a designer or if you've worked with designers, designers care a lot about their designs, and it's our job as developers to try to get as close as we can to them within reason. And when I say within reason, some designers want it really, really close, and I've tried to do that in the past, and it's actually kind of impressive when it all does come together if they're a good designer. Other times it's like, hey, you know what? This is close enough. Let me get back to coding functionality instead of trying to get this design just right. You kind of have to feel out what your designer wants. But these tools like this are there to help us kind of get closer to what the designers had in mind initially. And finally, a little humor to just kick off your week. The project lifecycle. Initial development, you start off, quality's going up, you're approaching production ready, you're getting closer, stagnation, getting old, a little boring, and then it just falls. New and exciting project to replace the old and crufty project. I don't even know what crufty means. Crusty? Was that supposed to be crusty? Maybe that was a typo. And then you start over again, and you start rebuilding, and you get to the top, and then you drop. This, I've experienced this a few times personally. My wife is actually my greatest motivator to finish apps, because she sees me doing this little trend where I drop down. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to redo some stuff really quick. And she has to tell me that released code is better than perfect code. There you go. A little bit of sage advice from my wife to everybody. So that's it for this week for Flutter News. If you have anything you want to see here, you can tweet it at BQMckay, or you can just use the hashtag Flutter News, and I'll be looking for it there. Have a good week. It's Google I/O. And next week I'll have some updates on what I thought of some things at Google I/O. And I'll see you then.